Hey guys, welcome back to Montana Diesel. So today what we're going to be working on is a fuel pressure regulator sensor. It's this little guy here, goes on to the back of the CP3 and plugs in, and then has the little sensor which tells how much fuel to run to the injectors and that type of thing. So if you haven't been to the CP3 before, it is way down here, basically right under the thermostat housing here, and then you'll see it, it's right before the bridge for the crossover. So this sensor I got at O'Reilly's, and they have a couple of different options. These aren't exactly cheap sensors. I think the low side was about $150 or so for them. Me running a lift pump and 30 over injectors and everything else, I wanted to be safe, so I went ahead and got their $350 sensor. So that's what we're going to be working on here today. So keep in mind, this is probably about a 4-hour job on book time. Granted, that's with air tools, that's with good lighting, everything like that. The nice thing is this job is technically a driveway job, so it's everything you can do sitting in your own driveway, but keep in mind the time's going to bump up there. This is my second time going down to the CP3. The first time I actually replaced the CP3. Now I'm just replacing the sensor because it was faulty. So keep in mind that's going to go up. I'm planning personally on 5 hours, and if I can beat that time, that's going to be great. But don't plan on being at just 4 hours. Have things going on at 4.5 hours after you schedule it. So keep an open schedule. It's going to take a while. There's a lot of digging to do. So first thing we're going to get started on is go ahead and remove all the bulky top stuff. So the silencer, if you still have it, we're going to go ahead and remove serpentine belt. Get the AC compressor off, get your intake up and out of the way, and get the turbo elbow out. And I think that'll be a pretty good start point, and then I'll check back with you guys, let you know where we're going next, and we'll get this sensor replaced, and with any luck, that'll solve the rough run issue that I've been having. Hey guys, also on a quick side note, when we get down here a ways, we're going to be replacing taking off, this little black coolant line. This runs to the back of your thermostat housing here. Where it goes in, there's a little O-ring for it, and I would just recommend getting an O-ring offhand. Anytime that you guys are taking apart a system where there's an O-ring, always try and have that O-ring offhand. The chances of you taking it off and that O-ring being destroyed or getting destroyed during disassembly or reassembly, it's pretty high. And for a $5, I think it was less than $5 at the dealership, it's just not worth it. I already know for a fact mine's leaking, so I'm just going to be replacing it on my way through. But here's the part number for that. It's 94011604. And it was less than $5, and I think that's really the only O-ring we're going to deal with on the way down. So just if you're doing this job, have it offhand for $5. It's better safe than sorry. Otherwise, you're going to be leaking coolant. It's going to be all over your engine. Everything's going to be sticky. So just kind of get one of these offhand if you're thinking ahead, and deal with that when we get down there. Alright guys, before I go too much farther with the serpentine belt and the AC compressor, one more thing I wanted to mention is unplug your batteries. I'm going to do that right now. Once we get farther inside and start working our way down towards the CP3, we're going to be crossing over a lot of electrical wires. We're going to be removing a lot of the sensors and wiring harnesses and stuff like that. So it's just better safe than sorry. If anything happens, you can end up shocking yourself, or you can fry something in the system. And for the extra minute and a half it takes to disconnect both batteries, it's just not worth it. So go ahead and disconnect those, get those out of the way. At least then you know the power's dead and you're not risking anything to happen. Alright guys, just going to kind of update you where we're at. I still haven't got to the serpentine belt and the AC compressor yet. But we got this inlet elbow out of the way, and we're getting kind of down towards there now. Should be able to see your inlet elbow and your bridge right here below the turbo now. And your CP3 is actually, I don't know if we can see it or not from here yet, it's right there directly underneath that elbow, so you can just about touch it on the underside of this. So that's where your sensor is going to be. It's almost directly in line with that, so you can't really see it from up here just yet. But we're going to get that out of there soon. The next thing you're going to want to do is, once you got all your intake and all that big stuff moved out of the way, like we said before, Reach down inside there, hit your tensioner, get this pulley pulled loose, and then it's just 4 bolts. Make sure to unplug your sensor and get this out of there. Be smart when you guys are doing this. We're going to get to coolant lines in a second, and just try not to get any coolant inside your sensors. You can either put like a Ziploc bag or something over them just to kind of make sure, because again, better safe than sorry. These sensors aren't cheap, and especially if you damage this end where all the wires are, then you got to rewire it, and it's just a bad day. So we're going to go ahead, get this serpentine belt off, get this compressor moved out of the way, and then we'll be moving to coolant lines and our wiring harness over here. Alright guys, so got my reservoir draining out of my coolant, which if you don't know where that drain plug is, it's right here behind this flap. Right up there, that little plug, you just let it drain out, and try not to reuse it. They say you can if it's clean and sterile, whatever, but better safe than sorry. So just get some new coolant, and then what we're gonna do, so we've got that pretty open, that elbow's out of there, the bridge is exposed, and you can see the CP3 pretty clearly now. And then our sensor is right there. It's just kind of busted on my end. You can see that's the sensor we're going after. So what we're going to do now to get all these wires and stuff out of our way, take off this bracket mounter that'll allow this to move, and you're going to need to get that out of your way so you can get to this metal coolant line. A lot of people say to take off the top of the thermostat housing, which is this little bracket here. There's only a couple of bolts to get it off, it's not all of them. But I'm going to see if I'm going to be able to bypass that. Maybe we'll have enough room that we can wiggle in behind basically where that line is now in these electronics. But we'll see. I might have to come back and rip it off after all. But besides that, get this clamp here off, remove this rubber line once your coolant's drained, and then we're going to have to get to these components here, which I'll show you how to get rid of in just a second. Alright guys, so while that coolant's still draining out over there, we're going to go ahead and get rid of these wiring harnesses. Pretty simple, just these little levers here, pop them in and out of place, so you just lift up on them, it'll push the harness out to you, and then you got these big old plugs in the way. So what we're going to do is there's going to be one screw right up here, which you want to take off, and then the same thing down below it for the second one. And that'll loosen up both of these brackets. And then what you can do is you can get down, there's a mounting bolt right on the other side of this line that you'll see once we take off this line. And then there's going to be one more over here underneath the intercooler line. You can't really see it on mine, I got oversized intercooler lines, but so that's what we're going to do. Go ahead and get these off, pull the brackets out, pull the electronics out, get them out of the way, and then we'll get to taking this guy off. Go ahead and do that once your coolant is drained. Just pinch, pull, line comes off the end of it, and then you'll kind of see what we're working with next. Alright guys, once these brackets are loose and moving, what you're going to look for is the mounting bracket, which is right below the second sensor here. There we go, you can see it there. So all the way down in there, that's the bolt we need to grab, and that's going to actually loosen this whole metal bracket system here, at least on one side. The second bolt is just adjacent to it. It's kind of hard to see with my intercooler lines here, but it's on the other side. I'll show you guys in just a second. We'll get this first bolt out of the way. Alright guys, so the second bolt kind of sucks for me to get to because of the intercooler lines, but it's right here, right at the end of this extension. You can kind of see it. I was able to sneak in just behind that second little spot. So go ahead and once we get that off, and you can't even see it there. Got one bolt here for this this coolant line, and then you got one over here that you'll be able to get to once this bracket's loose. And go ahead and pull off this rubber line as well. Alright guys, so this coolant line's off now. You can see it's still going to leak a little bit at first. There's just a little bit of buildup in the system still. So what you're going to do, there's two bolts over here that you need to get. You got one right here, and the other one's right here at the end of the extension. And there's going to be a third bolt down here on the bracket, but you don't really need to completely take this bracket off. This is enough just to kind of bend it out of the way. So we're going to pop those two off. We'll go over here, and you'll see that there's one more bolt right here where it goes into the thermostat housing. So go ahead and pull off these 2 bolts. We'll get this bolt out as well. And you're probably gonna have to take off as well this little rubber hose line out the back. It's a feed for your turbo. So we'll see. But more than likely plan on taking that little rubber hose in the back off too. Alright guys, we're at the final step here. Everything's off and out of the way. It doesn't look like I had to remove that thermostat housing. Based on where the sensor's at, I don't think I'm going to gain any ground over it. So if you look down in here now, you should be able to get a pretty good view of it. That's our sensor right there, the one that's all coated in garbage. 1 bolt over here on the side, 1 more right underneath that sensor wire, and then there's going to be 1 on the bottom. They're just going to have to kind of feel around for. So that is pretty much it. Looks like we got direct access down to the sensor now. You can see where mine was broken. I've got exposed metal, which is why mine's malfunctioning and not working. So gonna replace that. And one more thing, you guys, very important. This is the last step to reassembly. So I know it's exciting, but be very, very cautious with this. That sensor is basically the last step before all the fuel gets sent out to the injectors. So if you guys get any dirt, grime, whatever is down there, even just that little bit of grease coating I've got on there, you're risking wiping out an injector, maybe a whole system, possibly your CP3, which back in October of 2018 I had to replace. It was about $1,000 for the CP3. I went to 30 overs, which was another $4,000. It was about $5,000 to fix just a failed CP3. It just failed out of old age. But so be very careful with this. One more thing, I'm not going to video this part because it's cautious. With your sensor, make sure it goes in dead level. Everybody I talk to says if it's too high, too low, to the sides, whatever, and you scrape those O-rings, you're going to have malfunctions. Which, you know, we've spent almost 2 hours getting down here now, and the only way to test the system is to reassemble everything back up, reconnect the batteries, and start the truck. If you do anything wrong, you're spending hundreds of more dollars for possibly a new regulator, and you got to go all the way back in there and get it. So take your time. It's not a race. If you don't meet your time goal, oh well. Take an hour to clean that thing if you need to, but make sure it's clean, it's sterile. Don't pull the cap off your sensor till you are 100% ready to install it. Just be careful, take your time, be thorough, and we will start the reassembly process. Alright guys, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time going over the reassembly. Pretty self-explanatory, but I was going to help with one little tip. Anytime you guys are working on putting bolts in these tight areas, it's really hard to kind of get a bolt in there and started. So if you don't know this trick already, just take a little piece of wadded up tissue, slide it over the hole of your socket, and then what you can do is put a bolt right on top of that. And I'll show you here in just a second what I'm doing. You put that tissue on there and you just push down on it pretty hard. It holds in there so that now it won't fall out. So you can actually kind of stick it upside down and it'll stay in place. So that's just what I use to kind of get it started in those tight spaces in there. So let's get this reassembled and see how it runs. Alright guys, so engine's completely reassembled now. We're going to start it, see if we have anything going on. Hopefully that replaces the issue. If you guys have a faulty fuel pressure regulator, I promise you're going to know. It'll be a rough idle. It won't run very well. You're going to have issues. So basically if you're watching this and you have a faulty regulator, you're going to know. So hopefully when you start this truck, you also know that it's working or not. So let's get in, see how things go. Alright guys, so we're back in the truck. Let this thing kind of idle for about 30 minutes and wanted to let the injectors and the system kind of relearn itself. So I took it back to my house from the shop. So that's where we are now. For those of you that carry a programmer in your truck, or this is just an insight, this doesn't do my tuning. My tuning's through Ridge Runner, so I've got a DSP5 switch. But anyway, for those of you that carry these, go ahead and set up your fuel rail pressure. So this is desired fuel rail pressure. This tells you how much your truck should be getting, what it wants, and then this is your actual pressure. So these kind of help us at idle to kind of test and see if it's too high, if it's too low. You can drive while watching these, and they won't be dead on exact. I mean, even now you can kind of see it's fluctuating by 0.1. And it'll kind of fluctuate as you drive still. It's never going to be dead on, but they should still be within a close radius of 1.0 at least at all times. So you can check that, and you guys can check your injector balance rates. So go to your diagnostics, injector balance rates, and you should be at in between positive 4.0 and negative 4.0. So if you're on anything different than that, you're still having some issues. So we'll wait, and as you guys can see, all of my injectors are zeroed out, which is perfect. That's exactly where we want them. So yeah, means that worked out, and no more fuel pressure regulator issues. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure that you guys like, subscribe, leave a comment if you have any questions or concerns, and we'll be seeing you on the next video.